If I'm in Ghana where I live, I want to trade with somebody in Tanzania, I have to buy a third currency to trade with another African country. What has the dollar got to do with us as Africans trading together? It is...
We won't be enough to make Africa great, but we need partners who will partner with us. But for them to come, we must show the way that, look, we believe in our continent. We need to make sure that we knock off all these issues about visas, free movement of goods and services. Even travel is very, very expensive. Like what my brother here said, that to travel now between Lome to Ghana, 21 minutes, you pay $600. Then how do you move? How do you transact? And then now to come to, maybe to go to Mali, I might have to either go to Lome. If there's no seat, I have to go to Paris, then go to Mali. It doesn't make sense.
We need Secretary General of ZLECAf. How can ZLECAf accelerate the economic renaissance of Africa as a whole with the integration of markets, the mobility of talents, and the growth of the value chains across the region?
Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be in Senegal. I want to start by thanking the government for inviting the African Union. It is really a pleasure to be back in Dakar. I want to appreciate our heads of states in the room and the heads of government in this panel with me. Allow me to speak in English. I will speak French in the evening. The renaissance of our continent is long overdue. In May 1963, our founding mothers and fathers convened in Addis Ababa, and they had two objectives. One was to integrate our continent, to integrate the economy of our continent and create one market with free movement of goods, free movement of services, free movement of persons. The second objective was to defeat colonialism and push back the frontiers of colonialism. And of course, with the defeat of apartheid in my home country, South Africa, that objective was achieved, of pushing back on colonialism. The one objective that always evaded our continent is integration of our market. And this constrained the ability of our continent to fully realize the potential that all of us and the Honorable Prime Ministers, the Excellencies, have spoken about. We have a continent of 1.4 billion people with a combined GDP of 3.4 trillion United States dollars. But the fragmentation runs very deep. We have 42 currencies. When you want to travel from one part of the continent to another, like today I'm traveling to Kenya, I have to travel and connect in Dubai to get to another part of the continent. Movement of persons. We talk about with Chairman Dangote all the time, movement of persons across borders. It's easier to travel intra-Africa as an American or as a European or any other passport holder than for us as Africans. So, and all of this that I've mentioned is in the portfolio of economic renaissance of our continent. And so in the wisdom of our heads of states, ZLECAf is one of the instruments at our disposal to achieve this economic renaissance and to standing on the shoulders of our founding mothers and fathers to create a single market. And if we have not learnt our lesson from colonialism, we should learn our lesson from COVID-19. What happens when an entire continent is fragmented? The lack of value chains that you mentioned on our continent, the inability to produce what we consume, the foregone investment when we import over $50 billion worth of foods a year. COVID-19 taught us a very compelling lesson, and that is we as Africans must go beyond slogans, and we must build an industry that will sustain and create the economic self-sufficiency that all of us want to see. Now, it's no use crying over what is happening in other parts of the world. We must work together to create a single market. I will give you just 2 or 3 examples. His Excellency the President mentioned agriculture as one of the growth areas here in Senegal. And the vision of the government here can be modeled actually throughout the continent. Our continent imports over $50 billion worth of rice, soya, maize annually. And yet you have maize in Zimbabwe. You have maize in Ethiopia and other crops that are on the continent. But the fragmentation that ensued since 1960 constrains our ability to create a single market for food production in Africa. Why are we importing grains from other parts of the world when they are here? The second example that I will give you is in the area of pharmaceuticals. In 2019, we imported, as a continent, before COVID, we imported $20 billion worth of pharmaceutical products. That is $20 billion worth of pharmaceutical products, innovation in Africa forgone, employment in Africa forgone, public health in Africa forgone, manufacturing. And so we've got to accelerate the building of a domestic market so that the production happens here in Africa. Whether you are an international pharmaceutical producer or an African pharmaceutical producer, you should be producing in Africa. The final example I will give you is on payments. The economic sovereignty of our continent, for a very long time, we have actually surrendered it. We have 42 currencies I mentioned. If I'm in Ghana where I live, I want to trade with somebody in Tanzania, I have to buy a third currency to trade with another African country. What has the dollar got to do with us as Africans trading together? It is. So working with Afreximbank, we developed the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System, which enables digital payments in local currency so that you don't have to buy a third currency. You can trade in your local currency with your counterparty in another part of the African continent. So what we've learned from COVID-19 is that we have to build and introduce tools that will enable ZLECAf to become a reality, and a reality that will connect small medium enterprises in Senegal with those in Dakar and Malawi through all of these tools that I mentioned. I will tell you something that all of us probably experience. The cost of logistics and infrastructure in Africa continues to be too high, and that constrains the growth of our SMEs. So we have to work with our development finance institutions to make sure that we introduce trade finance mechanisms that will enable the renaissance that you mentioned to be driven by small, medium enterprises, by informal traders, by smallholder farmers, and so on. And so I summarize and end on the note that, yes, the renaissance is long overdue, but we must accelerate the pace of implementation of ZLECAf.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, this is a very interesting panel, but we'll have time for only one question, and Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko will round it up. Chairman Aliko Dangote, good to see you again.
Yeah.
You have, across Africa, here in Senegal, you are an investor. You've invested, and you've gone through all the aches that you may have had. What are some of the lessons that you have learned that will help Africa business champions play a role in reshaping global investors' perception and demonstrate that the continent is open, ready, strategically interesting for sustainable opportunities? And obviously you've invested in almost 18 countries besides Senegal, or 17 countries besides Senegal.
Well, thank you very much. I would like to first of all thank His Excellency for inviting me to this forum. I think I met him in New York. This was last year, and he mentioned about this forum. So, Your Excellency, thank you very much for inviting me, to be here, and other excellencies that are here. I think one of the issues that we need to look at about, you mentioned about African, economic champions. We must invest in our continent. The issue is that we're making big mistake by always looking for foreign investors. Foreign investors will only come when domestic investors invest. If Saudis are not investing in the economy, it will be very difficult, no matter how good it is, for me to go and invest in Saudi Arabia. So we must lead, then others will follow. We need support for from others. We alone cannot be, we won't be enough to make Africa great, but we need partners who will partner with us. But for them to come, we must show the way that, look, we believe in our continent, and it is good, it is open for business. Because, you see, most of this risk, or perceived even risk, I can say, we know our ways around. That's why we're all over the place, to try and invest. I mean, just 4 or 5 days ago, we launched our first urea plant of about $2.5 billion with the gas pipeline of 118 kilometers. Almost 3 projects totaling about $3 billion in Ethiopia, in Gode. So if we don't take that risk, because they have had this gas for a while, if we don't show the way that, look, we Africans believe in Africa, there's nobody that will come and invest. But another issue that we need to look at is that we need to learn from other countries. Where now we have difficulty of visas, and I think we need to knock out all these visas so that we can now have other investors that will come in freely to invest, co-invest with us. I mean, you look at it before with respect to, His Excellency Dr. Fale, Minister of Investment of Saudi Arabia, who is here with us. Your Excellency, thank you very much for the support. If you support, Senegal is supporting Africa, so thank you very much for your big support. But before, the hardest visa to get was Saudi's visa. To get a visa in Saudi was very difficult. But today, It is the easiest visa to get in the world. Because of all this traveling in Africa for the first time, I said, okay, fine, let me take another passport. So I went to Saudi, and I thought I had a valid visa. But when I got in there, I realized that my visa had already expired. But because I had a British visa, they gave me instantly, within 7 minutes, 1 year visa, because I have a British visa. That's what we need to do. We need to open up. If today you go to, I go to Umrah, I go to Saudi most of the time, for religious reasons. But if you go to Mecca or Medina, it's 100% full. There's no low season anymore. So they have opened up the economy. Well, that's what we need to do in Africa. But in Africa, it's very difficult. We need to make sure that we knock off all these issues about visas, free movement of goods and services. Even traveling is very, very expensive. Like what my brother here said, that to travel now between Lomé to Ghana, 21 minutes, you pay $600. Then how do you move? How do you transact? And then now to come to, maybe to go to Mali, I might have to either go to Lomé. If there's no seat, I have to go to Paris, then go to Mali. It doesn't make sense. We need to really open up. There are a lot of opportunities, but these opportunities, they are there on the ground unless you have people who are ready to risk their capital. So we need to look at establishing very strong banking institutions. We need to look at manufacturing. We need to look at agriculture, and then the ICT. Infrastructure, yes, is there, is given, but we don't have the strong banks to be able to fund this infrastructure. So some of us that we have the capital, we need foreigners that can come and partner with us. No foreigner will come and invest in Africa, maybe Chinese, but no foreigners will come and invest unless we show the way. And that's what we are doing as champions.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Africa. Mama Africa. Oh, yeah. You make Africa great. Thank you, Africa. Thank you, Africa.